to Direction Northeast. Hello, I'm Abby Hathorn. This program is a presentation of the Communications Department of Northeast State Community College. In this episode of Direction Northeast, we'll look at an exciting new program designed to help college teachers better facilitate teaching and develop student-centered learning at Northeast State Community College. We'll take a look at what's behind the Steps Ahead program after this video, which will tell us a little bit about the innovative program.
Every student can be successful at something. You find that something and you nurture that success. And for me, that's what the Collaborative Learning Initiative helps me do. It helps me see my students succeed. And it helps me learn, grow, and develop. And by doing that, I'm only helping my students learn, succeed, grow, and develop.
The most important thing is with all the working in groups and having to come up with a schedule, all the responsibilities, that's obviously going to help with having a job and all the responsibilities of adulthood. All the working in groups and having to rely on each other helps with all our social skills, and I don't feel like I'm on my own. I always feel like a big family at Northeast. Everybody's all in this together. It goes beyond the classroom because I see it in everyday life, like where I work and just using all the things that we learn outside of class. It's not just for my next exam, we use it every day.
Cooperative learning is something that I think is essential to the classroom, not only because of the fact that students need to have that skill to get a job, but they also, unless they're going to be professional hermits, they're going to be working with other people. And in that case, they're going to have to be able to work cooperatively with others.
Many of our faculty were already doing student-centered learning, but what this program gave us a chance to do was to put it under a microscope, examine it, to look at what the principles of that was. And so that's really changed me in many ways, being able to look at something in a different way. But it's not so much important to be able to describe it as it is to do it.
The different parts of STEP has really made me, as an instructor, not only step out of my comfort zone, but it has helped me see things from different perspectives. Letting students have some control over the classroom, because it's not just my classroom, it's theirs. It's a shared responsibility, I believe, between the instructor and the student.
The group work definitely helps me out because half the time I kind of might not listen to what's going on, so people have to help me and stuff. And I have had other classes that have cooperative learning, and I do way better in those classes.
I didn't know anybody in any of my classes, and being in that class, I made a lot of friends that I didn't have before.
The first couple times students have to do this, it can be very difficult and hard for them. But after the first couple times, students get to know some of their other classmates that maybe they didn't have the chance to get to know or talk to before. So, you know, besides the social networking and getting, for some students, better social skills, I think that students have really, it makes them more comfortable.
Most of my classes that I've had with this style of teaching have been highly centered around group work and group learning and collaborating with each other, which is what a big part of my career will be eventually. And if college is supposed to be preparing me for my career in the future, then it's a good thing to be doing now.
With collaborative learning, you can apply this in a lot of different areas. We can have student-student interactions. We can have students come together doing study groups where they can work with each other, learn from each other. We can have student-faculty collaborative learning. We can have faculty getting together with students outside the classroom, and that allows the students to ask more questions, the faculty to determine what the students do and do not know and where they need to work at. You can have faculty-faculty collaborative learning. You can have a couple of faculty members coming together and trying to determine what the best way to teach students is.
Learning here at Northeast State has been very different for me because I'm used to sitting in a class, you know, lecture, test, study guide, that's it. And then I come here and they want you to be more interactive. There's more groups. And I usually hated groups until I came here because then I learned a completely different scenario of people that really want to learn as much as you do and put in the effort as much as you do. And I learn better with other people there.
Research had to be determined that was applicable to the college, that was cutting edge, shall we say, that was successful at other institutions. So a team from our school actually went out and tried to do some research and find what the best programs were out there to improve the teaching at Northeast State.
We came in and we gave suggestions to people on how they could tweak their classes and gave them options on how to do it. So faculty got to choose what they do, and they seemed to really not just appreciate it and not just do it because it was required, but it seemed to revive an excitement about teaching that maybe you kind of lose when you do the same course over and over and over again. They started thinking about doing things a different way, and they not only looked at their own lesson plans, but they started talking to each other. So it opened up collaboration not just between the students, but between the faculty.
I think the cooperative learning is very useful because when you do have a job, you work with other people, and having people's skills and being able to work in a group is very important. You learn from each other, but you also help teach other people. So it's important to do your work, but also learn from everyone else.
It helps you understand yourself and how you learn better than just sitting there and looking out of a book. You can ask help of other students more frequently. You can collaborate with everyone in the classroom if you want to, or just one person. And that's what I think the STEP program is about, is being able to help a student become more confident in themselves and how they learn, and being able to take what they have and apply it to everything else that they have in their knowledge, in their workplace, in their school, in their other classes, at home, and being able to be the best person that they can in everything that they do.
Our guest for this program is the team responsible for managing the Center for Teaching Excellence, which is responsible for facilitating the Steps Ahead program. Hi, Dawn Dabney, Jim Kelly, and Rick Merritt. Thank you for joining me today on Direction Northeast.
Thank you.
My first question will be for Jim. All of this conversation about the STEP program, what can you tell me about that for someone who wouldn't know what it is?
Okay, well, it was occasioned when we were up for re-accreditation by the accreditation board, and they wanted us to do something that was significant for learning and teaching. So we did a lot of research, and one of the things in a nutshell that we came up with is one of the things that's lacking in today's educational environment is learning how to learn. You know, there's plenty of programs where people are sitting in classrooms listening to lectures and things like that, and not that we want to get rid of that environment, but there was not enough student involvement, student interaction, active learning. And so we designed a 4-step program that was designed to facilitate that, that type of learning in a classroom, which is more in line with the workforce development today. That's what employers are looking for. Students who can ask questions, who can problem solve, work in groups and things like that. So we feel like the program is tailored to the world that we live in today. And so we're very proud of what we've done and what we're continuing to do to facilitate that.
Now, Jim, what's your opinion about the biggest perk of the STEP program?
Biggest perk of the STEP program is student involvement. I mean, students, studies have shown time and time again that student retention is based so much on the fact that students feel engaged. And if they don't feel engaged, they're more likely to not get the benefit of being there or to completely drop out. And now that we're involved in the Tennessee Promise, and we have a big initiative to promote student engagement, student retention, we want to make sure that students are involved in their education, and that's a big perk. And plus, for instructors, for teachers, they're learning the same things. I know since I got involved in it, I think that I've learned so much about being actively involved in what I'm learning and learning every day, being a lifelong learner. I think that's a big perk, definitely.
Now, Dawn, what about you? What is your opinion on the biggest perk of the Steps Ahead program?
I think the biggest perk for me has been, as the students get more involved, I find myself getting more involved with the students. So it goes both ways. It builds a relationship in the classroom between me and them, where before if you just had lecture, there was kind of a us versus them environment, where now the students become more engaged with each other, they feel more part of a group, and they feel like I'm part of the group along with them. We're all on the same side instead of teacher versus students.
Exactly. Now, Jim, as the director of the Steps Ahead program, what would you say is the #1 goal of that program at Northeast State?
Well, we feel like the goal is to, first of all, raise awareness of student-centered learning, how important it is. We measure some of the aspects of that. Of course, we want to be known as a school where students are not just a passive recipient of information, but they're involved. And one of the things that we're doing now, certainly with Steps Ahead, is we have a very important iPad initiative, and I have iPads here. Students, we've done a pilot program this year to have certain students with iPads in the classroom to use them. Starting in fall of 2016, every student will be required to have an iPad, and we feel like that mobile technology is a very important component of today's world, and it's a way of, it's not just using technology for technology's sake. It's a way of getting students involved with the world they live in, because for so long, you know, we were told that you couldn't bring cell phones into class, you couldn't use these things. But we're very actively involved in that, and I think that's just one new part of the STEP program that promotes student engagement.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Rick, working closely with the STEPS program, would you say that how would you say that STEPS has affected student grades, student life, and their overall learning ability in a traditional classroom?
Well, the STEP program itself, including cooperative learning, as Jim had mentioned, kind of emulates what employers are looking for. You go anywhere, you're going to be working in teams. The STEP program with cooperative learning really focuses on that team aspect, getting active in your learning instead of being someone who is just receiving a lecture. You're actually helping provide information to not only your fellow students but to the instructor as well. And those are things that are looked for by employers, and I think that the STEP program has helped us to build better educated students who are going to be able to function either at the next level or to be able to function effectively out in the workplace, which I think is hugely valuable and really is our goal.
I totally agree. It's definitely important. Now, Jim, you have your 3 C's, Kelly's Common Core. For those of us who don't know what that is, how would you explain those 3 C's?
Well, we want to be connected and curious, and to be have a classroom that's based on being creative. So we have curiosity, creativity, and connectedness. And that's the 3 things that I think I've learned so much from, when I summarize it, what it means. Because first of all, nothing happens till you ask questions. So students need to learn how to be curious. And I think when we're born, one of the first things we do after saying mama and daddy, we ask why. And so promoting that type of curiosity. And we also, once we ask questions, we need to go to the step where we're actually creating something that expresses how we're answering that question. And the connectedness part is based on how we can connect what we're learning in one context to something else. And I know employers today are wanting to do that. They want students that are not just learning something and they see it only in one context. You want to go. But I think the importance of asking questions is so important in today's world. And then, you know, being able to do something about that, being able to apply it to other aspects of your life. So
now, Jim,
that's the 3 C's.
Now, Jim, how does that have an effect on the STEP program at Northeast State?
Well, because I think all of our initiatives that we have had so far in some ways have centered on those kinds of things. We talk about self-regulated learning. That's where students are aware of their learning styles, they're aware of the things they need to do to learn, and that's the curiosity phase of it, learning what best suits them. And then we have active learning, we have cooperative learning where students work, and the higher order thinking where students connect. So that's the way I summarize all 3 of those, and I call it my Common Core.
Now, Rick, as you can see, our Direction Northeast set is a little bit different today. What is your opinion on this non-traditional seating compared to the desks that you see in a normal classroom?
It is a way to build community in a classroom, easily. As you could tell, we're not going to do it because we're instructed not to, but we could easily turn into a 4-person group within a few seconds. If you have traditional tables or even those what were called the one-arm bandits, to try to get people face to face looking at each other to actually have a group, it takes huge amount of time and basically restructuring the classroom, which you have to put back later. And I've also found that as the weeks go on, that students gravitate toward the groups that they've been working with, but beyond that, we mix them up and have them join other people, that they get to know everybody in the classroom. And when you say form groups based on whatever, maybe the color of chair that you have, it's very easy for them to get into groups and to start to work right away, which again, going back to the mantra of what employers want, that's what they want to see, people being able to work in groups and work effectively together.
Now, Dawn, what are your opinions on these very interesting and colorful chairs?
I love them. It's funny that you can see the progression of the students during the class. When they first arrive, they're very uncomfortable with this sort of environment, and they almost want to line them back up, and it feels very messy to them and disorganized. After a few weeks where you've worked with the students and you've gotten them used to working with each other, I rarely walk in my classroom and see people facing forward. When they come in, they're already engaged with each other, and even though I teach math, they're talking about their math assignments even before I get there, because that's what they're used to doing in the room, that's what they're used to doing in their groups. I could come in late. I've had days where I told them I was going to miss, and they could still use the classroom to review for a test and still have most of my students in the classroom without me working with each other on the material voluntarily. So I think the chairs actually add to the atmosphere of where we're working together, and it's not just me directing the learning in the room.
That's amazing. I can definitely see that from my own personal experience with these chairs. Now, Jim, I'm just dying to know why these chairs. Why would we choose something non-traditional for just seating? How does that affect the learning process?
Well, we're able to get 16 classrooms furnished with these cooperative, and I'm sitting on a new thing called it's a stool, the buoy, and there's lots of interactive, very innovative types of furniture in classrooms, and the learning space is where we learn is a very important thing, or how we learn. And as Rick said, I think when you're in a classroom, everything's in these neat little rows, and you have seats that do not move. It's very hard to move them around. You cannot. What that's designed for is passivity, sitting there listening to one person. Whereas here, the direction of learning comes from wherever you've got the chairs pointed. It could be coming from you, be coming from Dawn or Rick. And plus, when you walk into a classroom like this, you know you're in a place that's different than what you've been used to. I had a great story. I had a student who was actually saying something bad about the chairs. He said, well, it kind of makes me feel like I'm in the third grade. And I said, that's fantastic, isn't it? I said, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because when is the last time you had fun in a classroom? And he said, probably the third grade. And I said, well, that's exactly the point. We want students to feel like that learning is an exciting sort of adventure. And these things promote that. It enables you to move the classroom around, change it.
Now, also on the subject of these chairs, if a student has, some type of learning disability where it's harder for them to get in the chairs, or they have a health that makes them a little bit obese, do the chairs cause problem for those students?
Well, if we do have anything, like when Rick was talking about the one-arm bandit chairs, they're very narrow, very confining. Those are not ADA compliant at all. So we're, as a school that really wants to promote accessibility, we're always aware of those kind of issues. We have all of our classrooms that have these tables also fitted out with a desk with a traditional chair. We want to accommodate students who, for some reason or the other, do not use these types of things.
Do you think with supplying them with a traditional desk versus one of these cooperative learning chairs, do you think they feel left out in certain situations?
No, in fact, we even have some new types of furniture that we might be implementing soon, where instead of having this type of thing, you actually have a traditional desk in a way with wheels and a chair, so it can be moved around. So this type of thing that we have will allow any student to be a part of a group or whatever. So, I don't think so. That's not our idea at all.
Now, Dawn, if a student is interested in becoming a part of the STEP program, what is the process of getting involved?
As a student, I believe it happens in the classroom. They learn from having a teacher who is using some of the STEP ideals. If a student finds themselves in a class that the teacher is maybe not in that particular course implementing any of the STEP ideals, they can take these things on their own. You may not be able to, say, implement cooperative learning or discussion in the classroom if that's not the teacher's style, but that doesn't mean that they can't take it outside that into their own study groups. And we've had students who have done that, taken what they've learned and taken it upon themselves, making it part of their own repertoire and not making it necessarily be teacher-driven. Again, the whole idea is this program is student-driven. Learn what works for you, and then when you go on to someplace else that maybe doesn't even have any sort of a STEP program, you take the skills that you've learned with you. You go to ETSU, you can get your own cohort of people and do the things that'll get you involved the way you were here at Northeast State.
Oh, absolutely.
And if I could, let me add just one thing to that. Dawn is exactly right. STEP is not a program, it's a state of mind. It's a mindset. It's getting yourself into this idea that learning is something you do all the time, do it anywhere. So it's not like a set of rules or guidelines that you have to agree to and sign a paper. It's reorienting your thinking about learning. That's what we're excited about.
Now, Rick, we talk about how Steps Ahead is all about learning how to learn. What exactly does that entail?
We teach subjects. I teach speech. Dawn mentioned she teaches math, Jim, history, humanities. But we're also teaching students and ourselves to an extent. How can we learn? We can learn from reading. We can learn from listening to somebody. We can learn from working cooperatively with other people. We can learn in a variety of ways, and we can learn from a variety of individuals. I've learned a lot in my classes listening to students give speeches, learning from them. When we're learning how to learn, we go through that process as what works best for us. And if it's reading focused, then you know that you can focus on that. However, you also need to realize that there are other avenues. So how can I learn from a lecture when reading is my focus? How can I learn from others when maybe a lecture is my focus? And putting those all together, because going through life, you're not going to always have the style that you prefer or works best for you. So learning how to learn in various modes is important, and we provide that through the idea of self-regulated learning, active learning, cooperative learning, and higher order thinking. So getting all of those together and saying, this is how I learn best as a student, and going forth even after you graduate from whatever your ultimate goal is, you're still going to be learning on a daily basis.
Now, Jim, do you think that all teachers in all subject courses throughout college, and especially at Northeast State, should have a STEP program initiative of some sort?
Of course. We think that should be the case, but it's not a case of going in and saying we're telling you to do this. We hope that we can provide ways in which this mindset is developed. Like one of the things I use, you can walk into a classroom and say, "Good morning, I'm Jim Kelly, I'm here to teach you history today." Or you can say, "Good morning, I'm Jim Kelly, we're here to learn about history today." It's just a mindset change. And we, of course, believe that every classroom should be oriented toward these ideas. And that doesn't mean we're throwing out any other ideas that ways they do things. But I just think it should be everywhere. And it should be in the air. You know, everybody should, and in your home, at workplace, whatever you're doing, you should be doing these kind of things.
Now, would you say that most students and teachers respond better to this active learning, or are there still people that like that more traditional?
Well, there's always going to be people that will, prefer one thing or the other, but we've known that through the 5 years we've been doing STEP that it's gotten a very warm response. And it's done very well. We hear it from students and we hear it from teachers that it is working. And many people were doing this anyway. They were already doing these kind of things before we brought this in. So this is not like we brought something from outer space and nobody had ever seen it before. Many people were doing it, and it fits in well with our culture, which is student-centered. And we just feel like it works well with the Northeast State environment.
Now, Dawn, do you think that other institutions, universities and community college all included, should have a STEP style program?
I think they should all have a STEP style program option. Like I said, you can't force a mindset on someone. You can't say you are going to teach this class with cooperative learning and expect it to work if that's not what the teacher's comfortable with. But you should have some kind of program that provides training, provides examples, concrete examples, and even I think for us what really helps is in our training we let the teachers have an opportunity to be the recipients of the feeling of the learning that way. You don't teach a course on cooperative learning without having the participants do cooperative learning. And being in the position of the student receiving that kind of learning, I think, is the best seller of the idea. When you realize it's working for you, then you realize, oh, this can work for my students. And I think that's what is necessary. You can't force it, so put the opportunities out there, provide the training. I think the best thing about us is we've made it optional to a certain extent. You have to try something, but your options are very varied. So taking away the fear of failure and not forcing it is the only way it's going to work.
Agreed.
Now, Dawn, would you say that the STEP program, especially at Northeast State, has helped improve students' GPAs and their overall feelings about college and college learning?
Absolutely. Of course, nothing works for everyone, but I can tell in my classes, like I said, if people are going to come to class even when I'm not there to review math, then it's not that my material is that exciting. It has definitely been the atmosphere in the class. It's been the atmosphere of I am part of a group. I am not out there on my own. The relationship that I have with my students has changed because, again, I've become a facilitator, not the sage on the stage, so I've become much more approachable. Both of those things, and the fact that I think the students carry this with them. If a student is not doing well, I have the opportunity to say, it's not your intelligence, it's your strategies. And if these strategies aren't working, let's try something else.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
when they learn how to learn, you're setting them up for success in more than just your course.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, y'all, for joining me today. Thank you. We'll be back in just a moment to wrap up Direction Northeast.
Our family gets together nearly every weekend. We laugh together, we enjoy each other, we have quality time together, and Northeast State has afforded us those opportunities. I'm a graduate of Northeast State, and my husband's a graduate of Northeast State, and both of our children chose to go to Northeast State. And I think it's because it provided us with an affordable quality education, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm Susan Graybill, and our whole family got our start at Northeast State.
That concludes the program for today. We have taken a look at the Steps Ahead program at Northeast State Community College. Community is very important to the students at Northeast State Community College, and this program takes a look at a few of the subjects they find important. Until we meet next time, on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of Northeast State Community College, I'm Abby Hathorn, and this is Direction Northeast.